Today's lesson is going to be a language lesson, and we start with language because that is probably the most important work we do in a Montessori classroom aside from practical life. And why we say that is because everything we do encompasses language, communication in particular, and not just on a behavioral level, but in particular how we enrich one another's communication and relationships through what we call vocabulary. And so when a child doesn't always have the most effective communication with another child, instead of telling them that's not what you say and that's not what you do, because even behavior is a kind of communication, it might be nonverbal, but it is communication, we give them the words. And so at a very early age, one of the most important things we give them are the words. You know, I often hear also with toddlers, as young as toddlers, believe it or not, parents and teachers saying, use your words, use your words, when a child's misbehaving. But you know what, sometimes they don't have the vocabulary, sometimes they don't know the words. So that's what we do, we give them the words, and it is very, very concrete. We may tell them exactly what they need to say, but also, we may also give them pictures of expectations. So we start out with real objects. We try to avoid as much as possible the pictures because they're much less concrete and more abstract. But when we have an object attached to that picture, then the child can be able to relate to it much better. And so we begin to engage the child's interest in language through concrete experiences. The first lesson we usually give with a child who's enriching their vocabulary, again, real objects, is something always related to nature, because we want to engage the child in something that will give them a sense of wonder. And we know wonder is all about the young child. You know, what's this and why that? And they're not just saying it because they don't have unanswered questions like we do when we ask why. They say it because it's touching something so deep in them that it's mysterious. And they want this kind of spirit come out of them to answer that question of why. You know, sort of like when you think about why is there the heaven and why is there the earth and how did this happen? It's those deep, almost philosophical questions that the child's asking, because it's the sense of wonderment that exists within the child. Think about a young child who is looking at a rock and saying, what's this? They're not just wanting to know the name, they want to know how this thing even come about. So we begin with real objects and we add a picture for that. And it's a very simple exercise you can do with your child at home. So don't just think it has to be something just like this. It can be this, something you pick up, a scallop, or it can be a cowrie shell. And when we show the child the object, we usually only do 3 at a time because we don't want to overwhelm the child. And they have to be somewhat contrasting. They don't look alike. So I think I'll choose a scallop, a cowrie shell, and a sundial. And then I'll see if the child can find the picture that goes with that. This is a cowrie. Now, as you can see, they really don't look that much alike, do they? And so you can see the child has to really use some visual discrimination with that. And they'll match it. We call that one-to-one correspondence. And then I show the child the next one. This is a sundial. And the child matches one-to-one correspondence. Again, it's not the exact match, but it's similar. So language is not just about learning the words, it's to be able to discriminate likenesses and differences. And the last one is the scallop. And of course, us beach people, we know what scallops are. We love scallops. And this coincidentally almost matches one-to-one. We like to have one that looks pretty much like that. At least one for the child. Now we have something we call a 3-period lesson. Can you show me where the scallop is? Can you show me where the sundial is? Can you show me where the cowrie is? And we do that a lot. We'll ask them now, can you show me where the cowrie is? And mix it up with different sequences. But then we have something we call the last period. The real test to see if the child understood the language and the vocabulary. What is this? Oh, can the child say scallop? And if the child can, we know they've acquired the language. So here's a real good trick you can play at home. When you give a child a lesson on what words you might want them to say, instead of maybe yelling at you for something, you might want them to say, please. Please make sure that you ask them, what do you need to say afterwards? Because if they don't say the word please, they didn't get the language. And you'll have to tell them again. Because that's how they learn language. Over and over and over again. And that's the Montessori way. Repetition is learning.